Hello, everyone. This is Brian Tonsoni, and this is Bracket Babblings, a Delphi bracketology production, along with StudentUnionSports.com. Tourney Week, or Championship Week, is here, and alongside of seniors Brandon Shockley and Jesse Scowden, we will be talking about all the conference tourneys, the favorites, the surprises, the Cinderellas. Welcome, fellas, to Championship Week. Let's get started right away, and we'll do the Mid-Eastern Conference Championship. And we're going with Jesse Scowden here. Will bring us that information.
So an interesting fact about this conference, during the non-conference schedule, they went a combined 16 and 140, 10% win ratio. But the favorites got to be NC Central, 22 and 8, 13 and 3. They've pretty much got this on lock. Contenders, on the other hand, Norfolk State, and my Cinderella pick is Savannah State. But I have North Carolina 8-T. The record's 1-28. Watch for them to get a W.
That'd be quite the 16th seed, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But whoever wins this is going to be a 16th seed. Next, we have the Mountain West Conference starting up. And Brandon, what can you tell us about the Mountain West?
For the non-conference, they were 173 and 48 with a 60%. 5 teams in RPI top 100. The favorites are Nevada with 25 and 6 and 14 and 4. The contenders are Colorado State and Fresno State. Cinderella is San Diego State.
And that brings us to our next conference, the SWAC Conference, and the favorite in that is Texas Southern, 20 and 11, and 16 and 2 in conference. And the thing about Coach Mike Davis used to coach at IU, he's found a home there with Texas Southern, and they play a pretty tough schedule. They go on the road. This conference, though, 10% winning non-conference, 12 and 98, so you're looking at possibly another 16 seed coming out of this conference. But Texas Southern's a favorite. Elkhorn State is a contender, and if you're looking for upset special, maybe Southern University gets it done in the SWAC. I'm going to take another one here with the MAC conference, and the favorite is Akron, who's had a really nice season. They've been in the top 70, 80 RPI most of the year. They're going to be the favorite, but this conference is kind of tightly bunched up. They have 4 or 5 teams that had all similar records. Ball State, a local university here, has, I believe, the number 4 seed. Western Michigan, the 5 seed, is a contender. The 2 and 3 seeds are Ohio and Buffalo. If you're looking for a traditional basketball school, maybe had a down year in the conference, a team that might be a Cinderella, and that is Kent State. But we look for this is a conference where I think the favorite might not win, and I think you're going to see one of those contenders come through, probably somewhere from a 13 or 14 seed team here at this point. Conference USA is next.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse.
The Middle Tennessee is a team to watch out for. Some people are saying that they might get a bid if they don't win. I don't see that really happening, but their RPI is 37, but that sub-200 loss might be killer. Although they are riding a 7-game win streak, they did beat Vanderbilt and UNC Wilmington. That's a thing to watch out for. Contenders right here, we got Louisiana Tech and Old Dominion, and the Cinderella being Marshall.
Middle Tennessee does pose an interesting thing for us, our committee, and the actual committee. They don't have the number of quality wins, but they have some wins against the schedule. And their non-conference strength of schedule was in the top 50, I believe.
It was actually 19.
It was 19. So, man, if they get beaten their tourney, I think there has to be serious conversation for us on putting them in at some place. A team that goes 27-5 or 28-29-5 has to be under consideration.
I do agree with that. It's just they played themselves out with – I mean, they really didn't have a choice. It's because their conference is so weak. But I agree. A team like that should be in over a Vanderbilt with maybe 14, 15 losses.
And unfortunately, the one sub-200 loss, I think, was in conference on the road at UTEP. They'll have a chance to play UTEP again, and I wonder if that'll have a factor, if they can beat them quite handily in the tournament. Back over to Brandon for the Big Sky tournament.
The North Dakota is definitely the favorite in this one. They're 19 and 9 and 14 and 4 in conference. Eastern Washington, Idaho, and Weber State, with Idaho riding a 4-game winning streak, and Cinderella's Montana and Montana State.
Again, another conference that'll probably be a 15 or 16 seed. Jesse, take the Southland Conference for us, would you please?
Yeah, we have the favorite as New Orleans, but don't be surprised if Houston Baptist wins this one. Actually, they're riding a 9-game win streak. Texas A&M CC is also there. A Cinderella could be a Sam Houston, but what gets me the most is 33 and 79 non-conference. This was Houston Baptist, I believe, beat UConn early in the year, and we thought that was going to be a huge win, but looking at it now, it's not really a huge win at all.
And again, these teams are playing for, I think, a 16 seed. But they're still fun conferences to watch. When they're on ESPN, the championship, it's going to make the season for some of these teams. New Orleans, I believe, and I don't have the name of the coach handy right now, but New Orleans is coached by a gentleman who's from the area. I think from the Lafayette area, might have been from Lafayette Central Catholic, and went to some other it's from Indiana, at least, and that would be nice to see him maybe make the tournament. The next tournament is the WAC conference. Will end up on Saturday. The favorite is Cal State University Bakersfield, 21-8 on the season, 12-2 in the conference. A couple of contenders: New Mexico State, Grand Canyon, and Utah Valley. And we probably have to check. Grand Canyon, are they eligible? This might be the first year that they're totally eligible for the tournament. Yeah. I know they've been processed from Division II or Division III up to Division I. So again, that conference is a conference. Again, fun to watch, just to watch the winners. But they're going to be a 15 or a 16 seed. Brandon, let's go to you for the Big West tournament.
The favorite is UC Arvine, 19-13, 12-4 in conference. Played Cal pretty close. The contenders is UC Davis, and the Cinderella to watch is Hawaii.
And we'll go back to Jesse now for the Sun Belt Conference. That'll end on Sunday, March 12th.
Yeah, we have another interesting team, UT Arlington, 24-7 and 14-4. They do have a top 50 win against St. Mary's, which is very interesting. I believe some people have them as a very dark horse. Cinderella, I actually have Georgia State. Don't sleep on them because they actually went into Purdue and almost got a huge W against Shockley's Boilermakers.
And for those listeners who might be wanting to watch these tourneys to see some upset picks in your bracket, UT Arlington, if they get the right matchup, they're looking at a 12 seed or a 13 seed. And if you're looking for a 12-5 or a 13-4 upset, UT Arlington might be the team. Let's go back to Brandon for the Ivy League, which for the first year is having a tournament. They used to just take the regular season winner, and this year they're taking the top four, and they're playing 2 semifinals on Saturday and a championship on Sunday. What do you have, Brandon?
For the favorite is Princeton, 12-6 and 14-0 in conference. The contender would be Harvard. Cinderella would be Penn.
Okay, and now we're getting into some of the bigger conferences, and with these bigger conferences, you have the winner who still goes, but you're going to have several at-large berths, and these conferences, the first rounds and the second rounds are very, very important for those teams that are hanging around the bubble, and we'll try to talk about some of those teams as we go. We're going to start off with the American Conference, ends on Sunday, March 12th, and there's the favorite here for me is Cincinnati. I think SMU can be a co-favorite at some point. SMU at 17-1. Cincinnati's been ranked higher and placed higher in our bracket. Some argue that these teams are 4 seeds. I don't see that. I think they're fighting for a 5 and a 6. A loser might drop to a 7. Maybe SMU more of a 7 than anything. So Houston is a team to watch. I think they understand that they have to win the conference tournament. They've had over 20 victories on the year, and that's a team to watch in this tournament. Cinderella, possibly Memphis, possibly UConn, because I think it's just down the road from their university. But both those teams have struggled this year. Let's go to the A10. Jesse, what do you have for our listeners?
The favorite, obviously, here, it could be a toss-up, actually, but I have Dayton, 4 wins versus top 50. VCU right behind them. They're a good squad. URI, I believe that's University of Rhode Island.
Yep.
They're also in contention there. With the Cinderellas, of course, being St. Bonaventure. They played Florida till the end of the game. They gave them quite a scare.
Yeah, I think Richmond is a 3 seed, if I remember looking at the bracket correctly, so that might be a team that can sneak in there. I think Dayton is definitely in the tournament, win or lose. Some people would say that both VCU and Rhode Island are our bubble teams or need to win. I would say it's going to be wise for VCU to get a win so nothing crazy happens. I still think they're in, even with a first game loss in this tournament. Rhode Island we have as the last team in, but they are very, very shaky right now. There's good arguments for some teams below it from other big conferences. And so I would suggest Rhode Island winning 2 or 3, or maybe they just need to win it all to get into the tournament. Let's go, Brandon, talk a little bit about the Big 12. Jesse, I'd like your opinion as well when he gets finished, because this is a major conference with a lot of teams headed to the NCAA.
I think there could be 2 favorites in this, like Kansas and Baylor. West Virginia is definitely a contender. They're not really up there in rankings. And Cinderella is definitely Iowa State.
Jesse, what do you think about the Big 12 tournament?
I believe that the top 2 teams actually could be favored either way. Obviously, I got Kansas. I like this conference a lot. It's a lot of variety up and down the whole shebang, if you want to say. I just think Kansas is too much. They've been playing very well this year, and I feel like they'll just win it.
Now, Kansas is a clear-cut favorite. The interesting thing when I looked at the bracket, guys, is Baylor is the 3 seed. And Baylor's been thought of as a 1 seed in the tournament, NCAA bracket, and they've fallen to a 3 seed in this. And I think that just speaks to the value of this conference. I would look for Iowa State to maybe make some noise. And Kansas State is in a must-win situation. I think they have Baylor in their first game. And if they win that, I believe that'll put them at 4 top 50 wins, and I think that could be enough. Kansas State may have to win 2, but I think winning against Baylor might equal 2. And so the question is, Kansas State is right above Rhode Island for us. If they lose to Baylor, that's not an awful loss. But are there some teams below them that'll make a deep run and make the tournament? So I think this is a tournament to watch. That first game, I think it's Thursday night, Kansas State versus Baylor.
I think you got to watch TCU. We had them in a couple weeks ago, and they've just fallen off. Jamie Dixon I believe his alma mater, took it over first year quite well, and they've just fallen. I'd like to see them try to make some noise in it.
Do you think they have an at-large possibility, or do they have to win it all?
I don't think they have an at-large. I just think free fall. They played Kansas up to the very end, but I just think they have to win it pretty much.
The interesting thing, our group will meet Thursday night for about 4 or 5 hours and solidify our bracket. And a deep run by TCU, and anyone you beat in this tournament is going to be a top 100 win, I believe. Texas Tech may not be, but if you get into the quarterfinals and you win that, and let's say TCU goes to the championship somehow, man, they pick up 2 top 50 wins. They're now sitting at 4. That could be something that could, draw them in. So I wouldn't count TCU totally out, but I think they have to win it all. Jesse, let's come back to you for the Big East. That'll end on Saturday, March 11th.
So we have Villanova, I would say, is the favorite, but my favorite is Butler. I absolutely love them. We went and watched them earlier this year. I just love their play from their point guard. His name doesn't ring a bell right now, but Killian Martin, he was benched, and him coming off the bench just solidifies that team so much. I'd have them as my favorite to win it.
I think, Brandon, who do you see is going to win this Big East tournament? Who's your favorite?
Probably Villanova. They're just too strong right now.
Villanova's got to be the favorite because of their strength and their championship pedigree. Seton Hall's a maybe possible Cinderella, and really I think anyone. The team that needs to win in this tournament is Xavier. And Xavier's only beaten DePaul in the last 7. They're matched up again with DePaul. Is another win, 2 wins against DePaul, enough to end their streak without their point guard, Sumner? And I didn't know this. I read today that they were 3-0 in their first 3 games without their point guard. Then Trevon Blewett went down, and he didn't play for a few games. And then since I'm not sure if he's back or full strength back yet, but that's something for us to discuss on Thursday too. Is part of this 6-game losing streak. They not only didn't have their point guard, they didn't have one of their better guards. They were down, and then the midseason they lost their third guard. So it's I think Xavier's in. Some people have them in the last 4 in and on jeopardy of losing. I think they beat DePaul in that first round, and they're definitely in and moving up to a 9 or 8 seed if they beat Butler, because that's who they'll play. But the Big East is always good. There's not going to be one game that's not going to be fun to watch. The Pac-12 will end on Saturday. It's a 3-team race: Arizona, UCLA, Oregon. I think this is a conference for seeding. None of these teams have huge numbers of wins, but they have quality wins, and so that's the tough thing for us to pick when we're trying to decide where to go with these Pac-12 seeds. But one of those 3 is going to win it. I think USC needs to win. I think they're a team that could be out. I think California is another team that's out, that with a deep run might be reconsidered, although I think they got to win the whole thing. But USC's been falling lately, and if they take an early exit, even if it's I haven't looked at the bracket today. A good team. What do you think about the Pac-12?
I think this is what you said is for seeding. With all of them in contention, I'd say for a 2-3 seed line. I think the team that needs to actually do very well in this is UCLA to solidify. They've jumped all over. I've seen them from a 4 to possibly a 2, a 1. I don't think they're a 1 or maybe a 2. But if they get a deep run, are they on the side with Arizona or Oregon? I say you beat 1, you're in line for a 2. And if you beat both of them and another team goofs up, they have love for UCLA, so I could see them maybe getting a 2 or 1 seed.
I agree with you, UCLA, because their strength of schedule is not the greatest. And I think the committee takes that into consideration somewhat strongly. And so, they need to get to the championship game. And obviously, if they win the conference, they're going to have to win at least 1 or 2 games against the top, teams. I think that's going to move them up. I think we currently have them on that borderline 3-4 range. You going back to the Butler thing, we've had Butler as a 3, we've had them as a 4, and we had a good argument during class today where Butler should be. But a lot of that depends on UCLA, too. If UCLA gets upset early, that might open up a spot for a team like Butler, Virginia, Florida to move up. Okay, so we're moving on to the 3 last conferences here. Let's go to Brandon for the ACC tournament. Talk about what's going on with that huge tournament.
Favorite is definitely like North Carolina, FSU, Louisville. The contenders definitely like Notre Dame, Duke, Virginia. They're just not that too strong up in competition-wise. The Cinderella, Syracuse, they can win anywhere. They proved it against Duke, if I remember right.
You bring up Syracuse, Brandon. I think that's a very good conversation. They got to be right at that cut list. And I know people really like them because they get 3 nice wins at home. They only have 2 wins away from the Carrier Dome all year, and that's got to count for something. And so I think they need to beat Miami in that first game. If they lose to Miami, I think you might see Syracuse out. They still can make it, but you got to win away from home. And if they lose, and they're 2 and whatever on the road, even in a conference tournament, I like Miami. I like Coach Jim Larinaga. I think he does a good job. That might be a sleeper. Any of the top 4 or 5. I think Virginia's the 6th seed. I think Virginia can win that thing. So this is a conference just to watch really great basketball, and I think you'll have some great games. Jesse, what can you say about the ACC?
Going back to Syracuse, I remember Jerry Palm saying on CBS, and we talked about it. No team having 3. They only have 2 wins away.
Mm-hmm.
No team in the tournament has ever. They've had 3 or more. So Syracuse better get at least 1. And as you're talking about the conference, I think this is the most deep conference out of all of them. And I don't think there's really a clear-cut favorite. You can make a case for North Carolina, of course, but I could see, like you said, a 6 seed winning this tournament.
Yeah, and the tougher things for your teams that aren't in the top 4, you got to play that extra game. So Notre Dame, Virginia, who are capable, I think those are the 5-6 seeds. They got to play an extra game. 3 top teams in a row to win. That could be. But the team to watch as far as bracket purposes, I think, is Syracuse. A loss, and boy, they should be sweating it. 1 win, and then they got North Carolina. So if they beat if they win the first round and beat North Carolina, then I think you can say they're safely in. Jesse, let's go back to you for the SEC. Talk a little bit about what we can expect in that tournament.
Their RPI for the whole conference as a whole is 5. I don't really see that many strong teams in this bracket. I mean, you could see a bunch of floaters, you could say, on the bubble. But you have Florida and Kentucky at the top. I obviously think Kentucky will come out on top of this one. But the team to watch the most is Vanderbilt, of course. They already have 14 losses. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Vanderbilt is a team to watch. They beat Texas A&M. I think they're seriously in contention to move in for a Rhode Island or a Kansas State. They beat Florida a third time. I think you got to put them in. But it's still, we've talked about this for weeks now. 15-team losses never been in. There have been 7 14-team losses, 5 in 1 year. So it's rare to even have a 14-team loss. And unless Vanderbilt wins at all, they're going to have 15 losses. Now, again, you lose in the semifinals, you lose in the finals, and you beat some teams along the way. In this year, I think you got to consider them. But that's the team. Brandon, SEC, you got a team you like, you're rooting for, or who do you think needs this the most?
Florida definitely could take this over Kentucky. They proved it over this season.
That will affect seeding, right? We've moved Kentucky up to number 2. Florida's loss to Vanderbilt keeps them in the 3-4 range.
That's interesting. We had that discussion last year in the same conference, actually, with A&M and Kentucky. I don't think just because one game will actually decide seeding purposes. You have to look at the whole body of work. Now, if they're tied, if it's close, you might use that as the deciding factor. But I just think you have to look at the body. You can't depend it on one game.
And Jesse, I'm glad you reminded us because that game ended on Sunday last year, and it seemed like they had the seeds already done. And then Kentucky won, and Kentucky was a lower seed than Texas A&M. And I think they had each split 1-1, kind of like Florida and Kentucky have. And so, yeah, I think for our listeners, that seeding process starts Friday night, early Saturday morning, and they probably seed out the top 4 or 5 seeds. And then as teams are added on Saturday night or whatever, then they add those into the seed, and then they bracket it in the morning on Sunday. We just heard that from Mark Hollis, the NCAA chair. So I think I think you're right. I think the seeding purposes might be a little lower than that. South Carolina, Arkansas must win a game or two to hold on to a seed. But we need to discuss how much conference tournament really affects seeding. I think it might affect the last few teams in or out more than seeding, and I think your tie comment is very good. Let me throw out a team. I've been looking for a team. Last year, Tulsa gets in, and there wasn't one bracketologist, not one comment on Tulsa in our conversations. So I've been looking for teams what's out there that the committee might throw in. Illinois State's always going to be one. They lost in their tournament championship. Should they be in? Should they be not in? You could easily miss on that. Number-wise, Illinois State has to be out. But sentimental-wise and looking at some of their rankings, they're a little bit high. But here's 2 teams. BYU beat Gonzaga. And BYU, I think their semifinals might be tonight or tomorrow. They're playing St. Mary's. If BYU beats St. Mary's and plays a close game against, Gonzaga again, do you throw them in at the end? Because they're at 22-10. They win their semifinal. They're 23-10. They lose to Gonzaga close. It's 23-11, and they'll have 3 or 4 top 50 wins. I'm just saying, no one thought Tulsa, right? No one thought Tulsa. Here's another one which I don't think is viable. Ole Miss. Ole Miss is sitting at 19-12, and if the 14-15 rule comes into play, you look at Ole Miss. If they can beat some teams, and they might have to go 2 or 3 games in this SEC tournament. But if Ole Miss does that, and they're sitting at 21-13 versus a 17-15 team, and Ole Miss, I believe, has beaten Vanderbilt. And I know they don't go head-to-head an awful lot, but again, the 17-15 Vanderbilt has beat Florida twice versus a team we'll have to see. But that's what makes these tournaments good is you got these first-round games, second-round games that could really affect bubble teams. Our last and most favorite for us here in the Midwest is the Big Ten tournament. And Brandon, I'll let you announce the favorite, and then I'll take it right back. The favorite, according to all of us, in the Big Ten is
Purdue.
And Purdue has just been the most outstanding team in the Big Ten. For us Indiana fans, that kind of hurts to say, but they've been really solid. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wisconsin, Maryland, Minnesota, any of the top 4 seeds take a run as contenders. I think, Tom Izzo is always pretty good in this tournament and could put a streak together. They may need a win or two, sitting at 18-13. Some people think they're in. A team like Northwestern can make a run, I think. But outside of that, I know there's it was mentioned on the show the other day on the game that no one wants to play IU, but I don't see that. I think Indiana is pretty much done. I think Dan Dockage said that on the telecast the other day. But the interesting question for me is Purdue. We've thought all along they were a 4 seed. We were incorrect when the committee revealed it. Not much has changed from the teams that were above them. There are a few teams. I think it comes down to 3 teams: Virginia, West Virginia, and Purdue. 2 of those 3 are going to get 4 seeds, and one's going to be a 5 seed, and we just got to try to figure that out. Brandon, what do you think about talk a little bit about Purdue? It's your team. You're having a great year. And anything else in the Big Ten?
Purdue is definitely should be a 4 seed, at least what I think of. I mean, they proved that they can hang with the best. They definitely got a National Player of the Year by most people. It's definitely one of the best years, like, standingly, like, conference-wise. Anyone can beat anyone. I like those kind of years.
Jesse, Big Ten.
I like to feel optimistic. I think IU got a favorable draw. I don't know. I just could be saying that, hoping that they would win. I mean, you can beat. I think they can beat Iowa and make it run. Honestly, maybe that's just my high horse, but I have to agree with my boy Shock over here. Purdue's cream of the crop, National Player of the Year candidate in Swanigan. I like them over West Virginia. I feel like if Purdue can make a run in this tournament, they can contend for a 4, possibly even a 3 seed.
I think the problem Purdue has when you look at resumes is top wins, quality wins. Their best win is Notre Dame on a neutral court, and you got West Virginia who's beaten some top-notch teams in the Big 12. Virginia has beaten some top-notch teams in the ACC, and if this committee prefers the quality over some other issues, I think you're going to see Purdue as a 5, and that's disappointing because I think there should be some boost. I don't know how you do it, some boost for conference champion. If you're a conference champion, that should be worth a top 2 or 3 50 wins or something like that because you played your conference and you beat them. But conference tournament week is great. 32 teams automatically get in. We've already had 4 conference champions selected. We have the 28 are either going to start and all of them are going to finish this week. So you have 32 in and 36 at-large berths, and I think that's down to maybe 4 or 5 open spots and about 10 or 15 teams that have a chance. Some are on what we would call life support. But these tournaments provide a chance to watch kids putting it all out on the floor. Talk about championship week, just the idea of playing for a championship and getting in the NCAA tournament, Brandon.
It's a really, like, the best week of college basketball. You get to see all these kids really put, basically what Tom Shotton said, put their life on a court.
And a lot of happiness when they win. Your thoughts on championship week?
Honestly, it's probably the best week of the year besides World Series time. I was watching Wichita State and Illinois State the other day, and wow, what energy is in that gym and how they play. You can just tell everything is on the line for that game to get into the tournament.
And I felt the same way about that game, and I watched Winthrop versus Campbell in their conference tournament, and man, they were going after it because they know they have a trip to the greatest tournament in college sports. So watch your teams, watch the different conferences. We will be updating our seed list every day. We will also be trying to update the bracket procedures. We'll have a big meeting Thursday night where Friday's information will be somewhat solid. And obviously, we'll have our final picks on Sunday before Selection Sunday. So, for our seniors, Brandon Shockley and Jesse Scowden, this is Brian Tonsoni with Delphi Bracketology. Again, a production along with StudentUnionSports.com. We hope you enjoyed this preview. Interact with us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets. Send us your question. We'll try to answer as quickly as possible. Our website is delphibracketology.weebly.com. We have these podcasts on here, and we have updated brackets and seed lists to follow the top links at the top of the page. We hope you have a wonderful championship week. We'll probably have at least 1 or 2 more podcasts out before Sunday so to update some of the stuff that's happening. And until then, happy hoops watching. Thanks.